This video is sponsored by John Wick 4 in theaters March 24th. Get your tickets today.
John will come for you, and you will do nothing because you can do nothing.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So John Wick is an icon of action cinema, and with Chapter 4 just on the horizon, we figured this would be the perfect time for a refresher on Wick's stories so far. Plus, you know, Doug and I love a good story about a man and his dog, right Doug?
Absolutely, they're just like you and me.
Exactly.
Because I'm always driving around in cool cars on secret missions while you're stuck here managing the store.
Wait, are you saying that you're comparing yourself to John Wick?
Well, you're the one wearing a name tag and I'm the one in a nice suit. You tell me.
Fair point. So the story kicks off right after the retirement of John Wick. We learn that he left his previous life to settle down with his wife Helen, who dies shortly after from a mysterious terminal illness.
What are you doing, John?
Looking at you.
Just before she passes, she leaves him a letter saying,
You still need something, someone to love. So start with this, because the card doesn't count.
the dog's name is Daisy, and John instantly becomes attached.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't stay sweet for long. One day, as he's filling up his beloved 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1, a man named Iosef Tarasov tries to buy his car.
How much?
Excuse me?
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.
And after Wick declines, Iosef decides to break into his home, steal his car, and he kills Daisy.
What? That's terrible. I can't imagine what it would be like if I lost you. I mean, who would run the store?
That's very sweet. After Daisy's death, John goes on a quest to find and kill Iosef. We discover that Iosef's father, Vigo, is the head of the Russian crime syndicate in NYC and also John's former employer.
How's your trip, kid?
We won't be hearing from them anytime soon. Or ever.
He gets word of his son's actions and he is not happy. Everybody is terrified of John Wick.
We call him Baba Yaga.
The boogeyman?
He was the one you sent to kill the f***ing boogeyman.
He then goes on to explain how John performed an impossible task for him, which allowed the Russian crime syndicate to be who they are today. Vigo then sends a 12-man hit squad to John's house, and John does what John does best. And we get to one of our first of many incredible fight sequences. The fact that Keanu did 90% of his own stunts makes these scenes even more impressive. After hearing about his first wave of men, Vigo places a $2 million bounty on John's head, and even goes so far as to hire John's mentor Marcus to take him out.
Would you kill John Wick for $2 million?
Meanwhile, John checks into the Continental, a hotel exclusively for assassins and those who work for the High Table.
And as always, it is a pleasure having you with us again, Mr. Wick.
They work for a table?
Not exactly. The High Table is a group of elites that essentially run John Wick's world. There's one very important rule about the hotel.
No business can be conducted on these premises lest incurring heavy penalties.
Here we also meet Charon, the front desk manager.
I have you for 2 nights.
Depending on business, it may be more.
John asks to speak to the hotel manager Winston, who tells him that he can find Iosef at his nightclub, the Red Circle. He heads there, and after John blows through 28 of his henchmen, Iosef manages to escape.
Come on!
John heads back to the Continental to get patched up, where not one but 2 assassins seem to have him in their crosshairs, including his buddy Marcus. The other assassin, named Perkins, tries to kill John in his hotel room, but Marcus saves him by intentionally missing his shot to wake him up. John forces Perkins to give up the location of Vigo's front. He leaves her with another assassin so that housekeeping can deal with her, but she manages to escape and kills him, officially breaking the Continental's #1 rule.
Give me something.
There's a church near Cannon Court. It's where Vigo keeps his private stash.
John finds Vigo's stash and burns the whole thing. He then tries to ambush Vigo but gets caught and kidnapped until Marcus swoops by and saves him once again. He chases down Vigo and forces him to give up the location of his son's safe house, where John finally finishes off Iosef. After his son's death, Vigo gets in contact with Perkins, who lets him know that John has been working with his old pal Marcus.
You made a new life?
So Vigo pays him a visit. Meanwhile, Winston finds and executes Perkins for violating the hotel's big rule that you can't kill on the grounds.
Your membership to the Continental has been by thine own hand revoked.
Winston tips off John about Vigo's plan to escape, so John heads off for an intense knife fight in the rain that ends like this. As the first chapter comes to a close, John breaks into an animal hospital to treat his injuries, where he decides to steal a pit bull that was scheduled for execution.
It's okay.
So he goes from avenging his dog's death to saving another. What a happy ending.
It is, but there's still 2 more movies. Chapter 2 starts just 4 days after the first film. John got vengeance for his dog, but he still needs his car. He discovers it's at a chop shop owned by Viggo's brother Avram Tarasov, so John pays him and his goons a visit. He finds Avram, and instead of killing him, he pours him a shot and asks for peace. Avram replies, which sets the tone for the rest of the film. Ignoring his warning, John goes home to bury his equipment, attempting to leave his past behind him, but that's when he's interrupted by Santino D'Antonio.
Santino.
Santino helped John with his impossible task, and in exchange for that help, Santino swore John to a marker.
You're always that guy, John.
Those things that you're always smelling in the back room?
Nope, not like that. A marker is a large coin-shaped locket that signifies a blood oath between 2 assassins. It's like an IOU for people that work for the High Table, with major consequences if they are refused.
What is this? Do you remember? This is your blood.
Santino has a job for John, calling in his marker. John still turns him down, so Santino does this. John heads to the Continental to chat with our old pal Winston, who informs us that there are only 2 rules under the High Table.
2 rules that cannot be broken, Jonathan. No blood on Continental grounds, and every marker must be honored.
Realizing he has no choice, John returns to Santino to fulfill his marker. He asks John to kill his sister Gianna because he wants her seat at the High Table.
I want you to kill my sister.
He uses the multiple amenities at the Continental, including the sommelier, who fixes him up with guns rather than wine, and the tailor, who provides him with a bulletproof suit. He also leaves his new dog with Cheiron at the front desk.
How rude. I mean, imagine if I never even asked you your name, person.
That would definitely be weird. Anyways, he infiltrates Gianna's coronation party, confronts her.
What brought you back, John?
A marker.
And she slits her own wrist to have some control over her death. On his way out, John runs into another friend from work named Cassian and asks him,
You working?
Yeah. You?
Yeah.
Which leads to another incredible fight scene. John and Cassian tussle in some very public places, and John racks up his highest body count in any one scene with 65 confirmed kills. The fight ends with Cassian and John crashing into the Continental Hotel in Rome, forcing them to stop the fight.
Gentlemen. Gentlemen.
The mood takes a complete 180 as they grab drinks at the bar, and he tells Cassian about the marker.
I had a marker.
Whose?
Her brother.
As John heads back to New York City, Santino puts a $7 million bounty on his head, which sends every assassin in the city after him. We start to see just how pervasive the High Table's network really is, as even street musicians try to take a shot at John, but he is super cool about it and even shows a few of his wannabe assassins his favorite magic trick. Cassian finds him, and after an intense knife fight, John leaves him alive as a professional courtesy.
The blade is in your aorta. You pull it out, you will bleed and you will die.
Now injured, John seeks out the help of the Bowery King, who runs an underground crime network made up of homeless people in disguise. With the help of his crew and network of pigeons, he treats John's wounds and gives him the information that he needs to find Santino. John heads to find Santino in his typical fashion, but Santino escapes to the Continental. He tells John that he plans to stay there indefinitely to ensure his safety.
A man can stay here a long time and never eat the same meal twice.
And despite every possible warning from Winston,
Jonathan, just walk away.
John publicly executes him in the Continental lobby. The next day, he gets his dog back, and Winston meets John in a park, where he lets him know that the High Table has doubled Santino's $7 million bounty to $14 million, and that John is now excommunicado.
Leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado.
Excommunicado?
Excommunicado. It's Latin for put out of the community. It means that John no longer has access to the many amenities that the Continental Network provides. No more sommeliers, tailors, or even medics. After hearing this, John asks,
Then why am I not dead?
Because I deemed it not to be.
And then we see yet another example of how much control the Continental has, as everyone in the crowded park stops what they're doing and turns to look at John. Winston gives John 1 hour to get his affairs in order before it becomes official, which leads directly into Chapter 3, Parabellum.
Parabellum?
Parabellum, another Latin word meaning prepare for war. Winston actually explains it later in the film.
See this packing. Parabellum.
John still has 1 hour left, and everyone in the city is looking to kill him. Phones are going off all over the place. He finds a cab, and just as it feels like he's finally amongst a normal person, he hands the cab driver a gold coin and asks him to take his dog to the hotel so that Charon can keep him safe.
Can you see that he's received by the concierge?
Wait, he leaves the dog again?
Well, he's a wanted man, and he wanted him to stay safe.
That's like if you went to go work for Heavy Spoilers.
Ooh, never. John heads to the New York library where he asks the librarian to help him find a Russian folktale.
Alexander Afanasyev, Narodny Ruski Skarsky, 1864.
Oh, I see. There are many Russian folktales by Alexander Afanasyev, but none of them were published in 1864. So it's a very good hiding place. Very clever, John Wick.
How did you know all that?
I'm wearing a suit, man.
Fair point. John grabs a marker and a rosary from his secret book just before getting attacked by an NBA player whom he inspires to ingest a little more literature. Despite the fact that John is just minutes away from being excommunicado, a doc agrees to patch him up, but runs out of time before he can finish, leaving John to finish up himself. Now it's official. Everyone and their mom is coming after him, so he takes off in a brand new Mustang.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. He then heads to the Tarkovsky Theater, where we're introduced to the director, the head of the Roscoe Roma crime syndicate, who calls John by his actual name.
Jardani, why have you come home?
Actually, she's known John since he was a child and treats him like a mother. Just like Santino did with his marker, he calls in a favor using his rosary, which he calls a ticket.
You are bound, and I am owed.
John exchanges his ticket for safe passage to Casablanca.
Passage.
Where did you want to go?
Casablanca.
Meanwhile, the High Table has sent an ambassador to both Winston and the Bowery King named the Adjudicator.
What's an adjudicator?
Well, an adjudicator is somebody who makes the formal decision based on a problem, like a judge. In Wick's world, they serve as direct agents to the High Table. The adjudicator lets both of them know that they have 7 days to resign their positions for their part in helping John and thus going against the High Table.
You have 1 week to get your affairs in order.
Excuse me?
At such time, your successor will be named.
Back in Casablanca, John meets up with his old friend Sophia, played by Halle Berry, and her 2 dogs, who are always casually decked out in bulletproof armor. John uses the marker that he grabbed from his secret book to get Sophia to help him find the only person who sits above the High Table, known as the Elder. Sophia takes him to her former employer, Barada, who tells John that he can find the Elder by wandering in the desert until he's nearly dead.
You wish to speak with him? Walk until you are almost dead, then keep walking. When you are on your last breath, he will find.
He also points out how much he's risking by helping John in any way and asks for one of Sophie's dogs in return for his assistance.
Does it shed a great deal?
After she, very rationally, tells him,
"No, you cannot keep my dog."
Oh, I don't think I like where this is going.
He shoots one of her dogs.
And I will kill him.
See, that's just ridiculous. Using a dog's death to enhance the story of humans, that's like puppy fridging.
Well, hold on, Doug, stay with me. The dog is saved by the bulletproof vest, and in classic John Wick style, they immediately get payback, and the dogs even chime in too.
Now that's incredible. That's just good puppy fun. You'd love to see it.
Honestly, yeah, it's an incredible fight sequence. Sophia takes him to the edge of the desert where he wanders around for days until he finally collapses. John awakens to a meeting with the Elder, who questions why he's even here and what purpose he has for living.
Why do you wish to live?
John tells him,
My wife, Helen. To remember her.
The Elder agrees to forgive John under a few conditions. He's got to kill Winston, remain subservient for the rest of his life.
The cost of your life will be the death of others. The first of which will be the man they called Winston.
And he's got to cut off his own finger in a pledge of fidelity. John then heads back to New York and is immediately confronted by the Adjudicator's hired assassin named Zero, who chases him all the way to the Continental, where Charon reminds Zero of rule number 1.
I suggest you lower your gun.
John meets up with Winston and the Adjudicator. John refuses to kill Winston, and since they're still on neutral ground, this forces the Adjudicator to deconsecrate the hotel.
Deconsecrated.
Why would they take out all the concrete?
Deconsecrate, Doug. It's the removal of a religious blessing or divinity from a church. In this case, it means the Continental is no longer on neutral ground and it is completely open for business. The Adjudicator sends an army after them, so Winston, John, and Charon all head down to a gun-filled vault in the basement. We get yet another huge fight scene where John takes out 35 men, including Zero, before the Adjudicator decides to parley.
I would like to suggest a parley.
A parley would be good.
Very well.
At the parley, Winston shoots John off a roof in order to show fealty to the High Table and regain his status as manager. But John survives. His body is brought to the Bowery King, who is rocking some wicked scars after the Adjudicator punished him with 7 cuts from his wakizashi. And the two agree to join forces, and that is what sets up Chapter 4.
Wow, what a story. That's amazing. How many people did John kill?
Well, going into the 4th movie, John's currently sitting at 299 kills by our count. But don't forget that John Wick 4 is in theaters on March 24th, and you can get your tickets right now. What do you guys think? Are you excited for Chapter 4? Anything that I should have kept in the recap? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.